Okay, we're back, and Smokes has started with a defensive side starter, where he has 3-2-7-4 to recapture in 3 and 6-4-6-1 to safely recapture in 1. Note there is no plus wall. Um, so in general, there's a lot of ways of playing these positions. Um, the simpleton way that I tend to adhere to is you check what are your potential L setups if you go in 1 or 3. Um, Now, note Smokes is also doing an aggressive side starter because if you go in 1 or 3, he has ways to capture it. So, okay, let's get to that in a sec. Some players, Seto being a notable example, like to play in 7 or 9 here. Delhi does a big variety that includes that. There's lots of ways to do it. But yeah, my instinct is to go in 1 or 3, and specifically with my plan being when they go in the other of 1 or 3, say 3-2-7-4 and 3, that I have a move in 4, setting up an L where I have a threat in 5. Ideally not shared, but it is okay if it is shared. It is not that bad for second turn to share it. The important thing is having the threat to induce them to block 5 and make that somewhat mandatory for them to do. Um, so, for instance, 5-4-3-6 and 4 looks like the likely planned follow up. Okay. Um, but the second thing is Smokes is a capture because Smokes did, in one sense, a defensive side. He has the safe recaptures, but in another sense, an aggressive side because he can attack whatever stuff plays. And so we do have to check 7-3-5-1 and 4. All right. Apparently we don't. Um, but I did think it looked appealing. Maybe the problem was 5-4-3-6 and 5 because that sets up a plus that covers 3-2-7-4 and 3. I'm not sure. Always worth checking 4 there as well as 3. You know, the defensive side plan is to just recapture in 3. The aggressive side plan is to attack what they do. Here there were options both ways. I don't know. Also, maybe 7-3-5-1. There were a lot of potential setups against it. Like for instance, 4-3-3-7 and 8 sets up a same in 7 and a plus in 5. So maybe there was lots of danger lurking there. Okay, this is certainly the safer path, probably the better one. What I wanted to say though was if you're looking at 1 or 3 and like you want to go 1 because you have a setup in 4, but you can't go 1 safely, there are lots of positions where like you're set up in 4 or 6, you have a setup in 4, but you don't have safety in 1, but you do have safety in 3. That will usually be the case with plus wall on when you have safety in 1 but not the other. Maybe not so much the case in this rule set. Um, so like you have 3 but no follow up in 6, and if you could go 1, you'd have a good follow up in 4, but you don't have 1. One way to do it is you go 3 and they go 1, and then you just go 4 anyway, and you lock in their card for them, but you set up 5. This tends not to be very good, but can definitely hold a tie. The better way to do it usually is if you have 3 and 4, is just to go 4 immediately. They go 1, and then you go 3, and you have set up 5, and you have both the cards in 2 or 3. So this is to say you're looking for where your safety is in 1 and 3, and then you're looking for where your setups are in 4 and 6. And if you have 1 and 4, then you play 1 and then you play 4, and it's straightforward. If you have 3 and 6, you play 3 then 6. If you have 1 and 6, you usually play 6 and then 1. If you have 4 and 3, you usually play 4 then 3. Um, of course, trickier if you don't have 2 squares and you only have 1 square. Um, yeah, this is presuming you have a certain amount of power in the hand, though most hands will. Um, and then, of course, there are options in 7 or 9, or if you're a weirdo, 8 or 5, but not bad options, just ones that I think require uh, more creative styles of play, I guess, which I tend to call weird, but that's a little unfair because I think creativity is good. All right. He does go in 4, and it is not the setup I noted, but it is a setup. There is 2, 3, 5, 6 with a threat in 5. This likely induces Smokes to block 5. Now, the thing about Smokes' blocks in 5 is they're not very good. They either don't flip 4, and it is nice to flip 4. So 7-3-5-1 doesn't flip 4, and it walks into a combo in 6. We can rule that out. 6-4-6-1 is my guess to be the choice. Yeah, 6-4-6-1 should probably tie. The quick line I've calculated that makes me think it should tie is stuff goes safely in 7, you go safely in 8 with 4-7-3-4, and 7-3-5-1 is a sufficient sweeper to hold the tie on the right side. So my guess is 6-4-6-1 ties. Conceivable I'm missing some big cute setup, as I often do, but yeah, I feel pretty comfortable guessing that's a tie. In a real game, I would do notably more calculation, but as in I'd go through the moves, but just on a kind of what's most likely to be threatening there? Does it work? No, probably a tie. Do I see some obvious setup? No, probably a tie. All right, so I think 6-4-6-1-5 is a tie. The problem with 4-7-3-4, which does flip 4, which is nice to flip, and does not give a setup in 6, and you don't want to give a setup in 6, of course, is it gives up like all your side-to-side power, and I would feel a lot scareder about playing that. Completely possible it ties because, if they go 7 and you go 8, you probably have the sufficient up-down sweeper. Nothing can hold off the might of 6-4-6-1. But it does seem scary to me. I would he's picked it up, but I would be much more likely to play 6-4-6-1 and 5 unless I had calculated that to a loss and the other to a tie. But if I have not done the full calculation, my guess would be the other way. Okay, he does neither. He says, I'm happy to use up all my left-right power. I don't need it, and you can have the combo in 5. It flips nothing extra. You will go up 6-4, and then I will recapture, and my 7-3-5. Ooh, very nice idea. All right, Smoke's playing much better than me today. So the idea is 2-3-5-6 and 5. Stuff goes up 6-4, and then you play exactly. No, I mean it doesn't do it, but exactly in either card works. But my instinct is you play 6-4-6-1 and 8, making it 5-5, and anything they put in 9 you same because both remaining cards have a 5 facing up, so you win there. And if they put something in 6, like 5-7-3-3, that doesn't capture 5, you just take it and you win. So the only tie is 5-4-3-6 and 6, which is admittedly the most obvious move to make, but only one tie there. Which might mean there's something a little better than what I'm noticing. But this is clever, right? This is noticing I can really make my up-down sweepers work. Yeah. I think this was not the only way to a tie, but it looks like a way to a tie. Let's check if there's any reasons this could be conceivably losing. I don't think it's very likely there's a move in 9. One thing about this is if you don't take 5 immediately, it's very easy for Smokes to block 5 because the cards he puts there there's no combos through, and they don't really set up Stuff's cards in either 6 or 8. I guess 7-3-5-1 could set up an 8. But for the most part, it doesn't look like a situation where, 9 is tricky. So I think we will see 2, 3, 5, 6, and 5. Yeah. I don't think I have a ton to add on this one. Another solid looking game. I don't think anything notable was missed. None of this felt like positions of like, should be winning, except wasn't winning after that, so I bet there was something else. Or, that was a major chance that looks good. Didn't spot anything. Seems like a solid tie. In the way that a lot of, I think, defensive side starters just kind of lead to a tie. Except when Seto plays. Yep, and we have a tie here in, I guess technically not game number 2. I guess this is game number 3 or 4? 3 maybe? They played at least one game where Smokes timed out because he got distracted by having a job, but a ridiculous thing to do. Because yeah, he timed out, but I believe he was winning. I now forget. Anyway, so they just kept playing, and here we are now. I would say pretty balanced game so far, in that like you can tie and think one player has outplayed the other by a substantial amount in a few different ways. One is like if someone has a much better hand and the other reaches a tie, you'll often conclude like the person who reached the tie must have outplayed the other. It doesn't actually mean they did. Like I think game 1 of this match was Smokes applied good pressure and Stuff handled the pressure. And I wouldn't treat it so much as outplaying as in Stuff played very well and there wasn't room for Smokes to play well enough to win that one. And then the other way you can think is there's often situations where like someone clearly develops a big advantage and the other person has a miracle tie, but obviously to get to the position, like you start with some balanced looking hand and someone really outplays the other one and then the other one happens to just snag a tie at the end that like couldn't really have been something they calculated from way back, and you just go, okay, I think mistakes were made and that player got lucky and the other player probably wins this game majority of the time. And my point is, none of that is happening here today, as far as I can tell. Pink Pal is Addy, right? I feel like that's Addy. And Mr. Forky is Mr. Forky. Open trade going on. All right, looks like Addy got the win here. 7-6-7-8. Flips a whole bunch of cards. Is that trade diff? That is trade diff. Ooh, that's rough. This is what? 8-2? 7-3. 7-3. I can count. There, see, 7-3. All right, let's end the video and go on to the next game.